Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining today, which is a great little BFCM debrief. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge, of course, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. My name is Hugh Griffiths. I'm the head of enterprise for ANZ here at Airwallex, and I'm thrilled to be joined by the amazing Paul Waddy. So Paul is a leading e-commerce executive and advisor. He's also the best-selling author of Shopify for Dummies, which I actually own. It's a fantastic book. And the chair of the advisory board for the National Online Retail Association. In his day-to-day, he advises some of Australia's leading online retailers, and we're actually honoured to have him here today. So welcome, Paul. And actually, I got to see you recently at the Nora Awards, where I got to sit next to you, actually, from memory. And you won an award, didn't you, that evening? Was it?
I presented
Yeah,
an award actually.
presented. Yes.
Presented an award in my sort of capacity with Nora.
Mm.
Big shout out to Nora. But yeah, we did sit next to each other, and I got to say, I felt like we had a pretty dynamic conversation, and I was pretty energized by all the things you've been up to. And yeah, welcome this opportunity any time's a good opportunity to have a chat with you, Hugh, but particularly to talk shop and to talk e-commerce and cyber month, really, as it should be called.
100%. I'm very excited. But before we kick off the debrief, I would like to share some of just the findings from our recent Airwallex Digital Economy Index. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that across LinkedIn, of course, just the digital landscape. And this is really setting the scene, kind of reflecting on BFCM for 2024. So we know that after a tricky year for e-commerce merchants, spending has been up this quarter, which is a really strong, optimistic end of the year, which we're really excited about. We know that global shoppers seem to be kind of snapping up Aussie goods. They're loving Australian brands, and international spending is really dominating some of these purchases from homegrown brands. We've seen some of the recent data. Our merchants in Tassie, WA, and ACT have experienced some of the biggest year-on-year increases in spending, which is just really, really exciting. And when we're looking specifically at the peak sales period, Airwallex payments customers, so this is customers who are processing online payments through our acquiring network, they saw a 46% increase in payments volume from the 1st of December to the 2nd of December when compared with last year, which is an 11% increase on Black Friday and actually an amazing 16% increase on Cyber Monday. So lots of great figures there. I think lots to work towards over the coming month, obviously being the 11th of December today. So we've set the scene, Paul. So I'm really keen to use your brain today and get into some of the metrics chat. It's been just over a week since the BFCM wrap up. So really keen, and maybe my first question is just around metrics, like what are some of the most important performance metrics you need to be evaluating at this point in time?
Look, I think the test of Cyber Month, Hugh, is really going to be at the end of the quarter. So we've
Mm,
spoken about the previous quarter being really strong, which is super exciting. And the Airwallex newsroom here breaks down that increase of what was it, 12 or 13% year-on-year growth in that quarter in online spending. That's pretty huge.
mm,
So that's firstly got me excited because we've had a really tough year. There have been months that have been down year on year. It's such a weird scenario we're in at the moment, and you can sort of see Western Australia up 272.5%. It feels
mhm.
like Western Australia is super hot right now. This
Yeah.
confirms it. Queensland really struggling, down 35. That down 35% year on year. So something they're feeling it in Queensland, which is interesting. But all in all, up. So that's positive. When you talk about this current month or the last month, really Cyber Week and all that sort of stuff, the metrics that I think you have to look out for first and foremost is a lot of brands will have really big revenue months, and depending on how they've managed their business, can actually end up having really poor profitability months. And essentially, the
Mm,
metrics that you've got to watch out for, of course, you're going to expect me to say conversion rate and average order value and cart abandonment rate. The real one that businesses struggle with, Hugh, is what are your COGS going to be at the end of November when half of your revenue or more comes at a 15, 25, 30% average discount? And so
mm,
you don't know your COGS in that month. you're playing Russian roulette. And so, like the tip there that I would give businesses is your COGS will get worse. That's fine, but understand where they'll be and drop your marketing spend down accordingly to preserve a bit of net profit. So if your COGS get 5% worse, drop your marketing spend down 5% to balance out that net profit, to maintain that net profit. And why wouldn't you do that? You're on sale. You shouldn't have to spend as much as you normally do. All the work's been done the 11 months before, really, Hugh. So your bottom of funnel,
Mm,
your email subscribers, they should all snap that up. But I think now what you've got to keep an eye on is how far has your baseline dropped? How far has your daily sales dropped after your discounting period? Now, if you're a brand that's maintained, yeah, I'm back to average daily sales, you're doing really, really well. If you're a brand
mm,
that's been discounting and after the end of Cyber Week, your sales have dropped to, let's say, 25% of normal, you're way too dependent on that discount. You've gone too deep, too hard, too long. Maybe your BAU pricing is too high. So you want to look at really how quickly you bounce back after this month or last month to normal full price sales. And really, this will all come out in the wash at the end of the quarter. So we need to look at the quarter and say, how did it go? Did we just bring a lot of sales from December into November? Did October really slow down because people were waiting for November? So we've got to look at the quarter. But as online retailers listening, we judge ourselves by how quick we bounce back to our baseline, in my opinion.
yeah, definitely. And it's really interesting you talk about that. And I think when we're looking at that type of reporting and that data, it's really interesting to see how merchants are kind of using that to kind of influence kind of their future activity. So I think looking at optimization, like when you see merchants looking at this data, looking at the future, like what kind of mistakes do you see them making kind of post this period? Because in the US recently, we've had a lot of brands kind of skipping this period to try and retain some of that brand equity. We've seen a lot of brands kind of holding out and then kind of giving in during this period. So keen to hear your thoughts around that in regards to just following BFCM.
Yeah, look, I think if BFCM is part of your strategy, go for it. Fantastic.
Mm,
I'm a very old retailer, so I exist. My
mm,
retail background is when my balance sheet told me to go on sale. That's when I go on sale. It's slightly
yep.
different now, but if you're a price leader or price is your thing, or you've got a bit of excess stock, or your margins are fantastic, go your hardest. But if you're a brand that spends 11 months of the year telling people that you're affordable luxury or you're luxe or you're premium, and then then you bring it, you go on sale 30% off for 2, 3 weeks, your customers aren't silly, right? So you've got to sort of stay true to your own mission and vision, I guess. It doesn't matter what I say. I just say, look, whatever you do, go in with your eyes wide open. There's no right or wrong. It's just got to be part of your strategy. I don't think you're going to find Louis Vuitton participate in Black Friday, but you
Mm.
probably find, different price leaders participating more heavily. That's fine. Just be well aware of kind of what you're getting into. And I think really some brands have skipped it. I know some brands have skipped it. Some have participated. I think just to reiterate the next point, the early point I made is what you're seeing now is the planning, I think, has not been great for some brands who have maybe not kind of forecasted correctly. They might be holding too much inventory now. So what you'll see, Hugh, is you'll see a lot of brands go again on the 15th.
Mm.
And you see those brands going hard and deep, and they've overordered and they've got their forecasting wrong. Or it could go the other way, where you've underordered and your December sales will be so low because you've sold out of your grade A product at 20, 30% off. So the inventory control is really where I think the money is made in planning, Hugh. It really is, not just from marketing, but from an inventory standpoint. And I think the mistakes that a lot of brands will make is now looking at their balance sheet and saying, I've got way too much inventory or not enough inventory. So I think brands need to really focus on demand planning during this incredible peak season.
Yeah, I love that. There's a famous brand in Bondi that do kind of men's linen, and they never really go on sale. And I was waiting for them to go, and they eventually did very late during the BFCM period. And it was actually a really good strategy for me because I was waiting, and then I made that purchase. Was there anything during the period that you particularly bought, or a particular strategy that got you to make a purchase or convert?
So that's really interesting because that's how
Mm.
we all shop. We all do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And people who say your customers can't be trained, we are. We are all trained. Now, what will happen is, that brand, you'll know, yep, they go late. So next year, you'll know they'll roll around and probably they'll be on sale again. Now, I like,
Yeah.
let's say, two brands that I like overseas is Axel Arigato and Aimé Leon Dor. Now, I kept my eye on them. and neither of them discounted. So you know
Mm,
what I did? I bought full price. And you know what
yeah.
I'll do next year? I'll buy full price. I won't wait. That's where my money will go. So I'm trained to know they won't be on sale. Whereas other brands I just waited for. Look, I gave Amazon a good nudge. I got to say, I really gave Amazon a good nudge. I use
Mm,
Amazon a lot because I just like the fact that it's reliable. It's not even about the price. Yes, it was on sale, but it really was just, it's just about the fact that it'll be there tomorrow, right? I certainly bought off a few. I got a nice bag for my wife from Cove and Co. Really nice beach bag. I, what was interesting for me? Nike, very heavy discount,
mm,
like 25% off store wide. And I've got to say, 2-week delivery time as well. I bought not from the Nike store, it was a little bit slow, a little bit disjointed. Bought from Culture Kings, same brand. I bought Nike from Culture Kings, delivered in 2 days, so in the middle of peak. So whatever those guys are doing is pretty good. But Culture Kings, I thought, hands down, great experience in terms of my personal shopping. First time I've bought from them as well, so that was a great experience.
yeah, what a brand. Fantastic in-store experience as well, Culture Kings.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely love that brand. I've definitely purchased a few things from them before, but unfortunately, I don't no longer get the emails, but I have to resubscribe to get those offers. Looking forward to kind of the start of 2025, there's so many things that we're seeing kind of Airwallex merchants do in regards to making a strong start, and obviously some strategies they already have in this current calendar year. And one of the biggest things we see is Airwallex merchants basically utilizing our infrastructure to kind of access new growth corridors. So that's definitely a theme that we've seen in regards to looking for growth. But we actually work with a whole bunch of local payment methods, which is of course very important when you're looking at expanding because a lot of kind of global regions are quite diverse. But we're still seeing the likes of Klarna and Afterpay really do extremely well for our merchants. There's a brand we've seen recently, Lux Skin. They do those infrared masks. I'm not sure if you've ever used one, but it's definitely on my list in regards to an item that I need to get because it's great for the complexion, of course. And they're really achieving a lot of their goals just regarding that uplift in AOV that you achieve via a BNPL. So keen to hear just some ideas from you in regards to just new things or even existing things that merchants could look for to get a really good start for 2025.
Yeah, you're not wrong on the BNPL. Like
Mm,
people say that, oh, the fees are pretty high, but I've run these tests before. The average order value does wash out the higher fees. That's my experience, particularly if you're a brand that sells things
yeah,
that are a little.
definitely. And yeah, I was significant in regards to some of those dramatic uplifts you see from an AOV perspective. It's exciting to see, obviously, merchants kind of achieving that through those LPMs. Obviously, in Australia, there's some great providers there when it comes to LPMs, and obviously overseas, there's lots of different providers you can see there. Are there any other brands that you could think of that you've seen in regards to kind of achieving those strategies, like adding a new payment method or actually adding a new territory, for example?
100%. Like it's been a
Mm,
tough year in retail. What's interesting is I keep an eye on the Airwallex reports and so on how the Airwallex brands are doing. And the Airwallex brands, the brands you work with, definitely
mm,
over-index performance. I've seen that before,
mhm.
and is this what you're seeing in the market, Paul? And I'm like, wow, your brands are kind of kicking goals. That's probably lines up with what I see, which is the brands that I work with, particularly who have accelerated rapidly in the last 12 months. A lot of it has come from overseas expansion. Now, okay, right here I'm talking about the brands that have gone to 100 million, let's say 30 million a year and beyond. Now, if you're in Australia and you're doing 20, 30 mil and you want to kick on to 100, not everybody, but you're probably going to be doing that in the US or maybe a little bit of Europe,
Mm,
but it's US. So the real red hot ones, and I don't think they'd mind me saying, is like the ones that I work with, Baby Boo Fashion, who is going to do in the hundreds of millions next year. 86% of that revenue it comes from the US. It hasn't always been the case.
mm,
Coincide with a very, very big uptick. And of course, part of that project, Maison de Sabre is the same. You see the Forbes article at the moment, they've gone to $50 million a year, by the way, on a net profit of over 30%. But that growth has come largely internationally, US and Japan. And so that's interesting. So both of those brands have focused heavily on localizing. And that's not easy.
mm,
When I started in a long time ago, Hugh, to localize was a huge, huge project. To get local currency, or I mean, it was hard. It was really hard. And
Mm,
now, obviously, using the likes of Airwallex and so on, you can settle in local currency without having an entity in those countries. And that's what these guys are doing. They're literally just like, yeah, we'll have a crack at the US. We'll turn on USD. We'll do local settlement. Settlement. You know what? We'll hold some funds in US and we'll start paying our suppliers out of USD. And that never existed really when I started a long time ago. And these brands are turning these things on very, very quickly and taking advantage of, maybe they're getting a bit of organic traction, Hugh. Then they're localizing payments.
yeah.
Some of them are localizing logistics as well, and they're just rocketing. But yeah, there's a correlation between the rapid hyper growth brands that I see. A lot of them do tend to be turning on things at checkout, like local payments and settlement in local currency, and really just doubling down on, you know what, we're going to have a proper crack at international here. And it pays off. Like when you get it right, that's where you go to that next kind of stratosphere of over 100 million a year in rev.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think Airwallex was definitely set up to kind of help merchants kind of get around or bypass a lot of these legacy kind of infrastructure or kind of payment environments. And that scenario where, as you said, you can basically go live in these major territories, get local accounts without the need for that local entity, is a real game changer. And it's super pleasing to see. One of the amazing things that Airwallex has also is we're one of only kind of two foreign vendors who have a Chinese payment license. So we process for some of the largest Chinese retailers, and some of the trends and kind of the volume that we see through there is incredible. It's amazing to see, of course, Australian merchants looking to access growth through those types of corridors, and obviously Asia to the forefront of that. When we think about trends, which is a perfect segue when we think about Asia, Chinese in particular have some pretty interesting shopping trends, and some kind of behaviors and kind of ways to pay and things that we don't currently have in Australia. So keen to hear some of your thoughts, Paul, around kind of future trends, and maybe the things that we might be seeing in Asia that could be coming to Australia soon.
Yeah, so I think there's two ways to answer this. There's the fact that, particularly in China, the manufacturers are getting much smarter. And what they're doing over there is, obviously they started selling on AliExpress and things like that. And then they went to Temu and Shein, and they're trying to attract the consumer through tons of money at Facebook or Meta. And they're trying to go a little bit D2C. Now, that's on their radar, Hugh. So
Mm,
and what they're doing now is they're partnering with marketing agencies who do what we're talking about. They localize in the local market, right? So imagine factories now having direct access to us. So as retailers, we've got to be really aware of that.
mhm.
Not put our heads in the sand. Temu's the fifth biggest online retailer in the country. Shein's the biggest fashion retailer in the country. Let's tackle that by being better. And part of being better, Hugh, is like adopting new technology. So what they do very well in Asia is, like, you would have seen TikTok Shop. That's here next year. My
Yeah,
biggest prediction for 2025 is the use of live streaming. Now, I'll put my house on that. No problem. Because we're already doing it. Like, all of us kind of going on Instagram Live. That's streaming, really. That's going live. But what I'm talking about is actually making it part of your strategy, where you say, okay, I'm going to start selling. Now, if you think about it, let's say we're having a chat here and, Hugh wants to buy this white t-shirt that I'm wearing. I'm like, bang, there's the link. I'll give you 10% off.
it's a great
Transaction.
shirt.
Yeah, it's a great shirt. Now, surely that's infinitely better than me looking at static images on a website, right? Because I can answer live questions. We actually been doing this 30 years ago through the television network, television shopping network. It's a thing. It's just changing the forum to put it online. So in China, you would have seen that girl who made millions of dollars in a few minutes just going bang, bang, bang. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's outrageous. But with full credit, we love Australia, but we're a little bit slow to adopt things. Now, this is well and truly rife in Asia, Singapore, China. It's coming via the TikTok shop. But I wouldn't leave it there. I think, I Show Speed, the streamer, was here. He was mobbed. These are the new celebrities, Hugh. These are the new influencers, streamers. And as
Mm,
e-commerce brands, most of us listening to this call aren't touching streaming in any way. Well, my prediction is do it in 2025 or get left behind, and do it as a way of differentiating from some of these monsters that are coming into our country and taking market share. So you got to try stuff and not be afraid to fail. And I think that live streaming, that live shopping is absolutely my number one pick for 2025.
So exciting. Yeah, I can't wait this time next year, Paul. Maybe we can get you on a live stream selling some stuff. That'll be incredible. And it'll just be fantastic to see that evolve and in particular with the Australian nuance behind it. It'll be super, super exciting. We've got about 8 minutes left, so I think we can go to some Q&A questions in a second. But probably my last one is I want to kind of talk about financial literacy. I think we're seeing this on the merchant side a lot more now, and kind of whole business is getting a lot deeper in regards to kind of returning to some of those basics like profit versus revenue. And then on the consumer side, obviously, in the current climate, we're seeing a lot of consumers choose online or the e-commerce experience because they've got that flexibility. They can kind of make that more educated purchasing decision. What do you think around that in regards to, in particularly consumers? Like, do you see that trend continuing versus kind of the pressure of bricks and mortar decisions?
Yeah, I think like I love bricks and mortar. I started out as a wholesaler, then I owned stores, and I definitely think I crave that in-store experience. And I think there's phenomenal omni-channel retailers around. So I definitely think there's a future for it. I think e-commerce is, it's 20% of total retail. Now, nobody
Yeah.
can tell me that that's not going to be 50-50 in 10 years. My daughters use an iPad better than me. Evolution will take care of that, Hugh. Again, it's like,
Yeah.
in 20 years, you're telling me e-commerce will still be 20%. It's going to be 50%, right? In a decade.
Mm,
So that's exciting. Like we've all got huge growth. Airwallex, me, all of us listening to this, we've all got huge growth. We're just getting started, right? So that's exciting. But as I always say to my wife, just because I know where to find the timing belt in my car doesn't mean I should try and change it. You got to still understand a little bit about what you're doing in e-commerce. At the end of the day, you're still in business, right?
mm,
I'm going to be a bit tough here. I do think that some retailers lack the fundamental business skills required to make it. And the level of financial literacy out there is just not good enough. And that's 100% what I work with brands. I say, look, you want the $50 million business. Would you go and apply for a job as a CEO at a $50 million company if you saw it in the paper? No, the answer is
mm.
don't accept that for yourself. And it is easy enough to level up. But I think people get lazy, they chuck a product in. And that's the other thing, Hugh. We generally all start with an idea, a passion for a product, like this product is going to change the world. And then 2 years
Yeah.
later, we spend more time looking in our Facebook ad accounts than we do working on the next great product. And that's that's laziness. That's the human bias at play, where we all focus on what we're good at or what we like. That would be like me going into the gym every day and doing my biceps. I end up with great
Yeah.
biceps, but not very healthy. So just well-rounded businesses. We're talking about it here. Like, what are you doing for payments? You can say 1 or 2% on payments. That's actually going to hit your bottom line straight away, 1 or 2%. Think about what your business is turning over and how much you'd have to make in sales to get a 1 to 2% increment on your profit. So it's just shifting the way you think. Revenue for vanity, profit for sanity, and profit is found all over the P&L if you really want to take the time to learn it. And I love that stuff. And that's where the gold is, I think.
Absolutely love that, Paul. That's a perfect soundbite right there. We've got 5 minutes left, so we're going to jump into the Q&A. Just looking at the questions now. Thank you for everyone who's sending them through. First question from Sam in Sydney. How can businesses tap into the technology of big business? So suppose that's around, like, can small businesses now access technology? Like, what's your views on that? I suppose from the Airwallex perspective, it's definitely available to all types of merchants, from the smallest right to the largest. So I think there's never been a better time to get online, obviously access the vendors and the technologists out there. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, 100%. This is
Mm,
this maybe the area that's changed most in the 20 years since I've been in e-commerce, because
mm.
I mentioned it earlier. I couldn't, as a small business, add something like a US bank account or local payments or things like that. It was a massive development project when I was on Magento at the time. But being on Shopify, firstly, that's the beauty of Shopify. You can have the legendary stack at a fraction of the cost, often without even having a developer on your books. So that's
Yeah.
the beauty of it. But you take Airwallex, right? This is, again, something that you can pretty much plug and play, right? You can pretty
Mm,
much
mm.
plug and play. Airwallex, a lot of people think this is an enterprise product, but not so. You can bolt that on as a smaller business, accept local currency, start selling into the States. It's
Yeah.
literally as easy as that. You want to have a crack at the States, turn local currency on, have a crack at it, go after it. So I think the beauty of e-commerce is it's the great leveler. what is available enterprise. A lot of it can be done if you're clever by smaller businesses, and that's what gives smaller businesses the opportunity to take some of that revenue from your dinosaurs that maybe are still in not doing e-commerce properly. But the tech stack for a small business can be right up there with best in class, and your subscriptions can still be pretty under control on your P&L.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Yeah, and at Airwallex, we can get you up and running literally in a second, straight through KYC, and you're up and running. So I love that. Next question from Sarah in Melbourne. This is for Paul. Do you have any recommendations on how to increase conversions for an emerging brand in a saturated market with reputable brands in the space? And so this is in particular for an activewear merchant.
I mean, well, activewear, fast category in e-commerce, but arguably the most saturated, as you point out. I
Yeah.
think the question is like, are you just going to roll out another pair of black bike shorts for women, or do you actually have a genuine point of difference? My very first client that I ever advised was in activewear. That was Muscle Republic. He actually just messaged me while we were on this thing. But you know what I say about Vic? If you go to Muscle Republic's site, halfway down the homepage, he's going to talk about his point of difference, which is his love of community. Real muscle is heart. And he
Mm,
doesn't put that on the site. He does that. He goes out always has into the local gyms in the northern beaches of Sydney, running, yoga groups. You got to live and breathe it. The simple question is, if you open up 3 of your competitors, you just got to ask yourself as a consumer, why would I choose, particularly if you're a new business, why would I choose mine? Now, I don't
mm,
know anything about this person's brand, but that's the question, is like, what problem are you solving? And I think you got to get straight to that point, right? So like, what's your special sauce? Is it, the world's most comfortable t-shirt? Is it we engage, in the community? Whatever it is, you've got to stand out. And a little tip for people who own brands is when you think about, if you had to go on Shark Tank and you had 4 seconds to pitch your business, what would you say? Oh, premium quality, gone. Everyone says that, right? So think about this. 2 of my all-time favorites, skinny thighs in 30 days. You know exactly what we do. That's not my actual business, nor is it my goal, but you understand what they do. The man shake, lose the beer gut without losing the beers. That's how you need to think about your business. In an elevator pitch, how do you sell me? Because attention spans are getting shorter. So every time you're selling, you're almost on Shark Tank. So you just got to think about what is your point of difference and then go all in on that point of difference. And that's up to you to work out what your point of difference is. Up to me to tell you if you don't have one, you're going to be throwing money at Meta and just competing on price, and you don't want to be in that game in activewear.
completely. Great advice, Paul. We're basically at time, but we've got one more question I think we can fit in. This is from Amanda in Sydney. So she says, I'm in the skincare resale industry and have noticed a significant decrease in sales post Black Friday. I only ran Black Friday for 2 days. Would you recommend running another sale to move inventory for the month, or would you spend more on marketing? Great question.
I mean, that's what we were talking. No, I wouldn't spend more on marketing. Never spend like, if anyone, I forgot your name on the question, but if
Amanda.
Amanda, if anyone ever tells you that when you're in a bit of trouble, spend more, sack them. That has never been the answer. Spend less is the answer and do more with less. So I made the point earlier that when you go on sale should be dictated by your balance sheet, right? Now, if your sales have dropped to the point where you're struggling to pay your bills a little bit, that means your margins are too low. You don't have the wiggle room to survive the low months. Firstly, judge your business in January, not November. If you're okay in January, which is the worst month of the year, you're going to be okay. Don't judge yourself on your best month. Any mug can make money in November. Judge yourself in January. But to answer your question, if you have too much stock, you need to liquidate. Too much stock means your lead time plus buffer stock. So let's say that your lead times to order stock in are 2 months. You need to hold 2 months plus, say, a 30-day buffer. So you should have a 3-month inventory holding, 3 months forward. If you've got 4 months, liquidate it. You'll run out of cash. Liquidate down to 3.
Paul, amazing answer. Guys, unfortunately, we are at time. Guys, keep a lookout for the blog. We can answer hopefully the rest of the questions on there. There's absolutely loads piling up. I wish we could have more time to speak more, but Paul, I can't thank you enough. Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for being on today. And we'll speak to you soon, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks, you. Thanks, everyone.